Hello friends, followers and channel members, welcome to another video here in Microsoft Flight Simulator. And over the last few days we've received exciting news and previews from the FlyByWire team regarding their upcoming Airbus A380, the future of GSX from FS Dream team and FS2 crew, all of which we're going to talk about in this video. Starting of course with the fact that the Airbus A380 from FlyByWire has been given some fantastic new behind the scenes previews. Now, I'm pretty certain that most of you watching this channel and those familiar with Microsoft Flight Simulator will of course have heard of the FlyByWire team. Originally a small group of developers who decided to try and improve the default A320neo in Microsoft Flight Simulator, adding more and more to it till eventually it became less of a mod and it became its own standalone add-on. On the 6th of November 2020, the FlyByWire team announced that they were going to be making an Airbus A380 for Microsoft Flight Simulator. Now of course we're getting close to nearly 2 years since that information was released. And I think it's fair to say that the vast majority of us, myself included, are really impatient for this aircraft. Not in a bad way, but we just know that the FlyByWire team will do an amazing job with it, that we all want to get our hands on it. Progress, of course, has been slow, but when you take into consideration that there are hundreds of developers all over the world working with the FlyByWire team and none of them are paid, they are all volunteers, the fact that they can produce an aircraft like this whilst continuing to develop the A380X really is phenomenal. I'm sure many of us would have expected the A380 to have been released by now, and that was perhaps because we were given a false perspective in the speed at which the FlyByWire team could operate, just because when they did bring out the A320NX, the progress they made over such a short span of time really was fantastic. Updates for new systems were being pushed out almost hourly, and every day new features came online. However, we were in the middle of a global pandemic and much of the world had shut down, and developers of course, like the rest of us, weren't working full time. So there was time on their hands to go ahead and concentrate all their efforts into the A320NX. Of course now the world is a very different place, with the majority of countries now all opened up and things getting back to normal, which means thankfully all the work that these developers had from their professional lives are back on track. Sadly though, for us in the flight sim community, it means less time has been devoted to the completion of the A380. Over the weekend, however, the FlyByWire team released an amazing video showing how far the A380 has come in its development progress. These images that the team have shared look absolutely phenomenal. The level of detail and realism depicted in these images are nothing short of astounding. And at the moment I would go as far to say that I think these are actually better than the A320NX. Here we can see an image of the cockpit window open as well, something that currently the A320NX can't do. Of course, it is a highly complicated aircraft with a lot more buttons and dials and things for the developers to model and then code, but I have no doubt that these guys are up to the task. The final image of course there showing all the avionics turned on and working. So how close is this aircraft to release? Well, only the FlyByWire team know, and of course they never give any time frames on the release or development of anything that they do, and that's quite understandable because, as I said previously, they're all volunteers, all with their own lives, so it'd be impossible to say that this is the date that this aircraft is going to be ready and released to the public. What I will say, however, is a question that I get asked on almost every live stream we do here on the channel is, when it is released, will I be flying it? Well, without any doubt, I will of course be flying this fantastic aircraft. I do guess in some ways the A380 was a kind of strange choice for the FlyByWire team to go ahead and develop. There were of course many other aircraft available and more popular, and sadly now the A380 has ceased production with no more being made. Many of them have also not come back into service yet following COVID, with some of them also being scrapped, which is a great shame considering that none of them had actually reached their end of life yet. That said, whenever you see an A380 take off or land, you can't help but just stand and stare in amazement at the size of this aircraft and the fact that of course it does fly. The size of the A380 really did knock the Queen of the Skies off her throne, but sadly it's just not as efficient as more modern airliners. The A350 and the Dreamliner, for example, are preferred by airlines for their fuel economy. But here in Microsoft Flight Simulator, there are literally thousands of us waiting to take to the skies in the A380. Now, the question I'd like to ask you guys is, how would you like the A380 to be released? We know that the FlyByWire team strive for perfection and are incredibly detailed in everything they do. We've seen evidence of this, of course, with the A320X. But if we were to wait until absolutely everything was working on the Airbus A380 prior to its release, would you be happy waiting several more months? Or would you rather they release the A380 perhaps with a few systems still inoperative, and then, as they have done and are doing with the A320X, just continue to roll out improvements to the systems, making things operational as we go along, if that meant that we could all get the A380 that little bit quicker? Let me know your thoughts on this down in the comments. Would you prefer it released quicker with things not quite right and working yet, or do you want to wait for the full aircraft in its entirety to be developed prior to its release? Some more really exciting news then also became made available over the last few days, and that was from FS Dream Team, the company responsible for GSX. Now, if you're not familiar with GSX in Microsoft Flight Simulator and X-Plane, then GSX is a ground handling services add-on which really adds not just a lot more immersion to the ground vehicles that we see around the world and at the apron, but they also in the past have had animated moving passengers walking to your aircraft, for example, and this was seen in previous incarnations of Microsoft Flight Simulator. We've all been waiting for something like this to come along, and finally we heard this weekend that the release date for GSX for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 should be before the end of this month. The team recently released a preview video showing the Fenix A320 being used with GSX. Of course, we'll have videos of this release when it becomes available here on the channel, as well as a first look and review, so make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications bell on the channel so you don't miss those videos. Sticking with the Fenix aircraft then for the final part of this video, and for those of you who enjoy using FS2 Crew software, the virtual co-pilot in Microsoft Flight Simulator, the team have released the Fenix version of FS2 Crew. This latest version of FS2 Crew features the latest updated version of Airbus standard operating procedures and also supports the virtual reality mode out of the box. Previous customers can also take advantage of a highly generous discount, this being available for just €5. This is a limited time only offer, however, so make sure you don't delay. Thank you to everyone for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please do hit that like button, and of course if you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future videos and of course the live streams. Thanks very much. I shall see you all in the next one. Bye bye for now.